Next, we have another high-powered young man, Leighton Watson. The Howard University Student Association president. So very honored to have you here. He's a 22-year-old Grand Rapids, Michigan native. He helped stage a pretty famous viral photo at Howard University that you may have seen, where the entire student body did the hands up, don't shoot gesture. Since the photo, Mr. Watson has continued to speak out about injustice against young African Americans, including a speech at the Justice for All March in Washington, D.C. He's, like I said, president of Howard University's Student Association and an ambassador for BET's What's at Stake initiative. He's set to graduate in May and hopes to get a Juris Doctor and Master of Business Administration, eventually practice law, start a successful practice, and then go back into public service. But here he is already doing public service. Thanks very much.
I first want to thank the individuals here who are in this room for your bravery. And I think it's bravery from the top down, bravery from the mothers, who, like you said, have shown incredible strength to come here and be here and relive that experience over and over again. I'll speak later on about experiencing Eric Garner's mother, who in the same way that these mothers have had to do, relive the experience over and over again. I want to thank the delegate for coming out and showing the bravery that you showed, to be a public face, but not be afraid to address the tough issues, the issues that aren't sexy, the issues that aren't going to score a lot of political points, but the issues that you know are going to change people's lives, are going to change the situation on the ground. So thank you. But I also want to thank the individuals who are in the crowd who have taken the time on your Friday afternoon to come out and address this pertinent issue. Because it's people like you, in my opinion, that are going to move this issue forward. It's people like you that have an understanding that is bigger than just you. Every 28 hours, somebody's killed by police in America. Every 28 hours. So this issue doesn't wait or take breaks on weekends. It doesn't have a time period where they say, okay, it's the weekend, we're going to slow down. This issue is happening every single day in our country. So I want to thank you all, and I want you all to give yourselves a round of applause just for being here. There's no I also wanted to, and I've been thinking about this for a long time. My dad is also a police officer, just so you know. So we have these conversations in our family all the time. But for me, I think this movement is at a point where it's going to hit a road where now we're figuring out, is this a movement? Is this a reaction to what happened? Or is this something that's going to fracture? Because at this point, we've agreed that something is wrong. I think generally across the board, people agree that something is wrong. Now, on the other end, you have people that generally agree that something else needs to happen. We want to stop the racial profiling. We want to stop the killings. But somewhere in the middle, and traditionally this is where it's fallen apart, somewhere in the middle there is a fracturing of the movement where people start to disagree with how to get to that end. And I know from my perspective, and you see on campus, that's where the movement is right now, and that's what's going to test this thing to see if this is something that it is as unprecedented as it's already been. If you look at historically, and this breaks down generationally, this breaks down socially and economically, if you look at historically, and I'll speak from a young person's perspective, how many individuals have heard of SNCC in the room? Okay, so we're pretty aware of SNCC. SNCC was the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, headed by a lot of members of Congress now, but they started off, as many of us did, as college students who were, and this is why I get upset with the fractured leadership, they're not together. That's exactly how they started off. There were leaders that had started in in North Carolina in the sit-ins. And so they had started in those sit-ins, they were leaders in their communities. Then what happened was, Ella Baker, who was a leader in her organization, Ella Baker brought together those leaders from across the country, 200 plus of them, to North Carolina, brought them together not to become members of her own organization, which was the SCLC, which was Martin Luther King's organization. Not to become members of the NAACP or the National Urban League. There's nothing wrong with those. But she brought them together to tell them, you all need to create your own organization that advances the rights that you see that need to be advanced. They were upset with the pace of the movement. They were upset with some of the answers. And so they said, come together, get together, and figure it out. And you can't leave until it's figured out. And so that's what my mission is now as a young person, is to bring together, to encapsulate the enthusiasm that you see on the streets, in the sit-ins, in the die-ins, college campuses, etc., and bring people together to figure out, okay, what are we going to do about it? On March 3rd, I'm going to Capitol Hill. I'm testifying in a congressional hearing on black men and boys. 2013, they had the same hearing where it was Michael Eric Dyson. It was Trayvon Martin's father that was there. I don't know if anybody remembers this hearing, but they had the same exact hearing 2 years ago. And so now we're in the same place. And I've been talking to officers, I've been meeting with individuals in the community, and that's part of the reason is I'm here too, to talk about solutions forward. So there, obviously, I'm addressing on a national level, so I'm having national sort of dialogue. But one of the things, and I'll just talk about the solutions, one of the things that we wanted to address is the underrepresentation of African Americans within the police department. It's very difficult, and my dad is a police officer, he told me about this. It's very difficult to teach people about cultural sensitivity that fundamentally don't understand the culture and fundamentally don't have an understanding of what it is to be in your shoes. Very difficult on both sides. Black understanding white, white understanding black, both sides. It's difficult. So what you need is individuals from that community that can go, they know the houses, they know the areas, they have friends in that community, they understand you in a way where you don't have to teach it in a classroom. They understand what's going on. And so one of the things that I've looked at is police cadet programs. And so what DC actually has a police cadet program where you have to be a student in the DC public schools. They go into the public schools, get the local kids, pay for their college education up to an associate's degree, but then also at the end, it's sort of like an ROTC program. At the end, there's some level of service that you have to do for the police department. The problem is, and oftentimes, again, good intentions, bad in practice, oftentimes the students looked exactly like the officers that are already in the police department. So we have to think about it a little bit more critically, and that's what I'm doing when I'm addressing Congress. Also, this is a little bit antiquated. You really can't do anything with an associate's degree right now. You need a bachelor's degree. And so while we put a third of our budget in defense, while we put money in all sort of other programs, I think this is a program that we need to finance. The other piece that I want to address is literally no one knows the number of individuals who are killed by police a year.
Right.
That's scary to me. Like when I'm doing research on this,
Exactly.
I could not believe that. And really it's not a difficult thing to institute. It's just there's no political will to do it. So we all know that policing is a local issue. Locally, police departments need to start reporting those numbers to their states. Those states need to start reporting those numbers to the FBI. There's no reason why that can't happen. That can happen with the stroke of a pen. And so when we talk about solutions, that's a national, I understand it's a local issue, but there are some national things that our legislators can do to get involved. But I'm definitely also listening, on the panel, I'm listening to these solutions and figuring out what I can do. And I think that's ultimately what it comes down to. What can you as individuals do in your home, talking to your kids as a parent, as an employee? What can you do to make sure that this is not an annual event? That we don't have to come together and commemorate a death or a martyr in our community just to come together and have a conversation that we need to be having regardless. And if that's as simple as having a conversation with your son or daughter about what their opinions are, how they feel when they're automatically interacting with someone of the opposite race, that can change things because you never know what's going to spark something in their head that's going to push them to do something different in that situation. It's going to push them maybe not to pull the trigger when they feel that fear or when they feel that insecurity. And so I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to hear the solutions. And thank you all for taking the time to listen to me.